I never would have married you.
I needed to get 37 stitches in my mouth.
He made a big scene. He put his hands on me.
That's the biggest red flag, secluding you from your friends and family. Because why? Why are you taking me away from people that you know love me?
He wanted to go out, hang out with his friends and drink, and that's when he kicked me when I was pregnant.
He also sprayed me with mace at one time.
How many times are you going to allow an abuser with a record, to get a bond?
Or being in a situation where you have to start over. And sometimes starting over is hard, but I think it's better to be safe than being dead.
Sandy Powell, and welcome to the Round Table. Today, my topic is one that's near and dear my heart. Everyone who knows Sandy Powell knows that domestic violence is one of those subjects that I take time for and that I find a necessity to discuss. And so today, my guest is Jacoby Love, and he is also one who's bringing to the table the topic of domestic violence and its terror on our people. And I want him to talk with utmost freedom about this topic because people need to know. And so first, welcome my guest, Jacoby Love. Thank you for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on this show.
I always say to people that the honor comes here. I'm honored that you would feel it okay to be here and talk about things that mean the most to you. So when you come and share your heart, I'm always honored to have you here to do that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Good. Jacoby, when you reached out to me about your show, your film, A Dangerous Silence, I could tell by the writing, like my son said, you can tell by the way you penned it that it's not just a hot topic for you. This is something that is near and dear your heart as well. In honor of Domestic Violence Month, in the month of October, this show is going to air prior and during our Domestic Violence Month. And can you talk about A Dangerous Silence? Tell me how this came about.
So the project started out as it was going to be a narrative film at first. And I was doing research for the film. I was going to do a film about domestic violence. Mm-hmm. And by researching, I was interviewing women who've been through it. And as I was interviewing, we just kept going. And I was like, why don't I do a documentary? And while I was doing this, I was an employee at WLTZ, News, NBC 38 News.
Okay.
I kept seeing the pattern of women being murdered by their lovers, husbands, and boyfriends.
Right.
And I was like, coming from a background of family where they have a history of being victims of domestic violence.
Right.
Let me take my skills and my resources and do something about it.
Right.
I call myself a filmmaker, and I haven't done any films to do anything to have an impact on the world.
Right.
So I felt like it was time for me to get off the sidelines and to get into the game and start doing something.
Another thing that you and I both have in common is that, during our conversation, you talked about this, mm-hmm. is that it hits close to home. Mm-hmm. Domestic violence is something, a part of your background. Can you share a little bit with us?
Yeah. So my own mother was a victim by my own father. I know of one occurrence that happened in the car. My aunt, she was abused, and it affects some of the relationships that she has today. She still has some withdrawal. She may meet a good man, but she flashes back to being assaulted or harassed and being talked down to. And
right.
Sometimes she thinks it's too good, so she doesn't even believe in it. And my grandmother had a divorce because of the same thing. And when I look at the women who are Dangerous Silence, the film, we follow four stories. The stories of Destiny Virgin. She was a young woman who was 18 years old, and she was only 18. She only got to be 18 for a week before she was murdered. That could have easily been my sister. Mariah Farrell could have easily been my sister. Deanne King could have been my mother. And Jerica Spellman could have easily been my auntie. So
And all
these
of these
women,
women are from our surrounding area, Columbus, Phoenix City area.
exactly, yes. It's right here in our own backyard that is happening.
Right.
We don't talk about it as much as we need to.
We
It's
don't.
something we got to. There's this thing about don't you can't pry into your neighbor's yard or don't that's their business, not our business. But when you have suspicions or you feel like your brother or your sister's not speaking or they're showing up with bruises or they're you don't see them at the family gatherings, ask why. Call them up. Like, when's the last time you checked on your family member?
Right.
Please, we got to
Right.
start talking to each other again. Okay?
We find in the Black community, we find that in relationships between a man and a woman, be it husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend, that's none of our business.
Mm-hmm.
We feel like, they'll work it out, they'll get there or whatever. But when you're in domestic violence situations, there is no working out. These situations are volatile and like you said, dangerous, and most of us suffered in silence because of this mentality that we have about minding our business in other people's relationships. What do you think about that?
Yes, ma'am. So it's a part of minding your own business, and then combine that with the fact that a lot of victims feel ashamed or they feel embarrassed. Uh, they know it's wrong, and a lot of people say, "Why would you stay in a relationship like that?" It's a lot of factors that causes people to stay in it. It's not because abuse doesn't just come into the form of physical abuse. There's
Right.
economic abuse. There's psychological abuse. Um, it comes in many.
Emotional abuse.
Exactly, emotional. The worst one, in my opinion, is psychological because the mind is once the abuser has control of the mind, they have the victim.
Right. They
Both.
break you down. They
Mhm.
break you down to the point where you're unable to fend off the abuse and or at least escape the abuse.
Yeah,
And the abuser is very tactical about it.
yeah. A pattern I noticed with a lot of the interviews, we noticed that a lot of the abusers are manipulative and very clever with the way that they do things.
They isolate you.
Hmm.
They try to make you their soul. It's me and you against the world, which looks like love,
Right.
but it's actually a way of getting you from your support that may be able to pull you out of a bad situation. And so this cycle of abuse continues because you have now turned your back or rejected or let go of people who were once a part of your life for this person, and now you feel trapped because you decided I'm not gonna roll with my family because I'm gonna roll with my man or my woman, because it goes both ways in this abuse thing now.
Good.
But we sacrifice a lot to be with the person that turns around and abuses us in whatever way that is. And in your background, I heard it, and then you started talking about how it affects us in future relationships.
Hmm.
It's hard for us, or because I'm saying us because I've been that person. It's hard to trust,
Yeah.
and you start to look at everybody with a like, we question everything and everybody. We don't trust very well, and we look for the same pattern. And everybody's not an abuser, but we look at everybody like one.
It's a lingering effect.
It is.
And it just stains. It's like a stain. And after the relationship's over, you're constantly washing at it, trying to get rid of it.
Trying to get rid of it. And not and I'll even go further to say it becomes so much a part of us that it becomes our norm. We actually look for those type, even though we know it's not good, we actually will pattern and go and choose the same type of person that we just escaped or that we may have gotten away from. We'll turn right back around and choose the same kind of guy or girl or whatever.
and if we can stay on that topic for a
Go,
second,
go.
talking about as a pattern, that pattern turns into a cycle, which is why when it comes to children, especially, I believe the stat was, we copy what we see.
Hmm.
One of the 15 children in this country are going to be subject to intimate partner violence. And I believe the number was 90% of those children are going to be eyewitnesses to it.
Wow.
Children copy what they see, and if you're around that, that's what you're gonna put out there in the world. If you're not opened up or shown a different relationship, if you're not shown healthy relationship, which is why it's important for uh, men, people who are in a relationship. If you have kids, you have you you must show them the proper ways to deal with conflict. Conflict resolution needs to be a class that everyone should take, because you should never put your hands on one another. You shouldn't have to yell at one another. But if that's the environment that you come from, that's all you know. That's how you're gonna bring it to your relationship. And it's important that we go and seek counsel, because all of us deal with trauma from our childhood. That's what I
Exactly.
noticed in all the abusers and the situations that I dealt with the ladies. Um, most of the abusers, I think 100% of the abusers came from a background where
Yeah.
they went through the same thing.
Right.
The
Because we
same thing.
think
We
that
need
that's
to
the
stop
norm. Right. We
it.
think that's the
Yeah.
normal. At everybody house, people yell and hit. Right. That's what we think. Everybody's going through what I'm going through. We don't even know what normal is until you visit somebody and you look and I didn't anyway. I came up in a home where my father, my biological father, was very abusive, emotionally,
Hmm.
financially. He wasn't a good provider, and being out with his friends meant a lot more to him than being home with his family. And although at the end, he did make this turn, and I'm grateful for that. But by then, we are molded and made. We're already now set off on a path of some sort. And most of the time, you're absolutely right. We have to get counsel for children who have lived in these type of homes, else they're going to just repeat the same cycle. If little son Joey sees dad hitting mom, or dad hitting his girlfriend,
Yep.
he thinks that this how you handle your wife. And the same thing, little Terry, she thinks that a man is supposed to hit her, and she's supposed to be subjected to a man's abuse in this way. This is the norm. And so she goes out and finds a guy to date that is in that same vein, that is very abusive in some sort. And I think that this is why I think it's important for us to have these type of shows, and for you to make the documentary that you have made, A Dangerous Silence, because behind the scenes, this conversation isn't happening.
Hmm.
And definitely not because the abuser doesn't want this information out. First of all, it puts him in that light. I did a show one year, and I couldn't find anybody to come forward to talk about either them being an abuser before, like someone who may have been in that position before, and now after getting help are now on a better path.
Yeah.
I wanted to have a show to talk about, that side when you come out, because they need to know that you can get help, but you got to get help. You got to want the help. And I'm applauding you as a male, because we don't get a whole lot of males who will talk about this subject. It's a hush hush behind the scenes. And your topic, your film, A Dangerous Silence, says a lot just in the title. Tell me, when is this documentary gonna hit the scene?
So we're gonna have our first preview screening on October 2nd. That's a Friday. Doors will open at 6 p.m. The ceremony itself will begin at 6:45, and at 7:30 we're gonna show the film. Tickets are on sale now on Eventbrite. You can follow us on our Facebook page to get the links, and follow us for updates and posts on what's coming up with the screening. And it'll be at the Perfect Place. The address for that is 5344B Kolb, with a Kolb, Kolb Avenue.
He said, make sure to get You said make sure to get that part right because you don't end up on the.
Because I've been saying it, and people are like, what you said? That's a C, right? No, with a K, Cold. And some people thinking I'm saying corn on the cob. I don't. But yeah, but 5344B Cove Avenue. Yeah.
Is it a way for people if they wanted to, let's say, donate, but they're not able to be at the film, because we're in the middle of a pandemic, but but this still needs to get out.
It does.
Can people donate to your cause?
Yes, they can, because the film A Dangerous Silence isn't just stopping at the preview screening here in Columbus, Georgia. I'm taking this film and I'm taking these women and their stories all over the world. So we need funding for the film festival circuit that we got coming up. The film has its own soundtrack that we're gonna get with positive and uplifting songs and messages that should be on the radio. And you can contribute to that with our PayPal account. We have the links for that also on our Facebook page and our Instagram. You type in A Dangerous Silence and you will find us. And there is the GoFundMe page, GoFundMe.com, and you can type in A Dangerous Silence and you will find us there also. But it's not stopping here.
You can tell you're determined.
It's ongoing. But I'm not stopping here for the preview screening. This is just for the families and everyone locally to come together,
right?
Talk about what's going on and to spread some love and some knowledge. If I can take it to the Bible real quick, there's a scripture I cannot remember where, but it says that my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge.
That's it.
What we got to do with the stories is not just tell the stories, but we also got to educate and help save us and to help save lives, because none of these women had to die. Not Jerica, not Destiny, not Mariah, not Deanne. No one had to die.
Right.
And there's other survivors in the film also. None of them had to endure what they went through. In most of the situations, someone knew what was going on and no one said anything, which is why the film is called A Dangerous Silence.
Right.
A lot of people, when it happens, no one says anything. Or just quiet on it. And it's crazy. The things that we should talk about, we don't talk about. A lie will travel fast as truth. But we need more truth out there in the world. But truth is uncomfortable. Exactly. The truth is uncomfortable. And if I can go back to something you said about men, the involvement of men, we are majority of men are the abusers in these situations.
Right.
When it comes to the solution of the problem with domestic violence, where are we?
Right.
We say Black Lives Matter.
Come on now.
Well, where are we when it comes to us? When it comes to us taking care of us?
Right.
The stats for the rate at which Black women endure domestic violence when compared to our white counterparts is disproportionately measured. More of our sisters are dying by domestic violence than I'm saying. I feel
any
like
other race of women. Right.
Yeah, it's us. We got to get more love in the home, and we got to talk. You don't have to put your hands on anybody.
Right.
You don't have to put your hands on anyone to get your point across.
Right.
Talk. Put the phone down. Learn about each other. Get to know each other. Build a friendship first before you get into a relationship.
I know. And nowadays, because our society is so centered around physical connection, we don't take time to get to know a person, to know who we're about to enter into a relationship with or connect ourselves with, because we're so focused on the physical realm of a person. And then before we realize it, we're attached our feelings and emotions to someone who doesn't really care about putting their hands on us or touching us in an incorrect way. And so I think that that's something that needs to be brought out more too. We as people got to stop being so physically driven. And I understand the physical thing. It's nothing like a good looking person or whatever. And I'm not against that, but not to the point where it's going to cost me my life, my self-esteem, my wholeness. Yeah. And that's what we got to get young people to understand, that you got to look past the physical and really learn a person for who they are before you get emotionally or physically involved with people. You're going to have to put this thing in some kind of order here.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And that goes into one of the other goals I forgot to mention earlier with a dangerous silence. We want to get it into the school systems.
Yes.
That's one of the goals and plans after the screening to be in talks with our own school system, Muskogee County School District,
Yeah.
to take the film and make it a part of an annual event if possible. They have their hands full right now, so I understand.
How young are you trying to go into the school? Which schools are you trying to go into? How young?
I think to be honest, I feel like we need to start in middle school.
I'm gonna tell you this. You need to go right in to the daycare,
And
to
that's
the elementary school. You know why?
why
Because that's where we're seeing it at. We're babies seeing domestic violence.
That's true.
We're young. I was like a toddler experiencing domestic violence. And so I think you ought to take it right there to the young, to the middle, to the aged. I think there's no age limit because we experience it from all levels. You may have to modify, of course, depending on the age. But this message here, because a lot of people experience, like some of these women had young children.
Yeah. And then to support that fact, to support what you're saying, in Columbus, well, in Georgia, in the state of Georgia, our own state, Georgia is number one for the teenage dating violence rate.
Really?
Two of the women that are featured in the documentary were teenagers when they were murdered. Two of them. And then one of them, you talked about how Jerica Spellman, she's the young woman that was murdered in Elizabeth Canty by her boyfriend.
Right.
Along with the three children who
With the children, yes,
weren't even older than 3 years old. So it is that young.
And you think about, and I'm not going to finger point because it happens all the time, but that wasn't the first incident that people heard him abusing her. That wasn't the first time that he had jumped on her or hit her or whatever. Somebody knew that. And out of fear, sometimes it's fear that we don't say anything. And sometimes it's that old adage that we think their relationship is their business.
Yeah.
And sometimes even the abused, the one that's in the relationship, will protect and shield and try to give the abuser a good face that he's not such a bad guy. I know because I did all those things.
Yeah. Lindsay Reese, the director at Hope Harbor. Hope Harbor is a local. We got to get to that too. I forgot. We got to
Go ahead.
But Lindsay Reese, she brought up a good point in the documentary. She talks about how every day isn't a bad day in a lot of these relationships.
Right.
And people do love who they're with.
Right.
And it's not like she said. It's not like they went out on a date and got punched in the face and said, "Okay, we're gonna go out again." It doesn't work that way.
Mm-mm.
It's complicated because you're dealing with emotions. You're dealing with economies. Most of the times, the man may be the breadwinner, and or they're equally balanced when it comes to income. But if you lose that in your house and you got kids, what do? You're gonna be out on the street.
Right.
Why we need places.
Right.
We need to fund places like Hope Harbor, which is a shelter. We need to support the Ronald McDonald House. We need to and when it comes to sexual violence, there's the sexual assault support group we have here in town. There's plenty of resources. There's the Family Center for counseling. There's a lot of resources here in the town, and I hate that they don't get the necessary funds to be able to reach as many people as they would, because they make a difference. It's those things that I feel like we should be funding or bringing attention to, but because it's needed.
It is. It's such a need.
The money's going to places we don't necessarily need it, and the society will only be fixed, or our community will only get better once we fix the families, it starts in the household. The families get better, the society gets better, the community gets better. It's a it's a domino.
Catch-22, but we think that when will we get it? A good church comes from the fact that you have people at home being good family members.
Mm-hmm.
Good society comes from the same place.
Mm-hmm.
You got good families, you got good homes, you got, people who are walking this thing out the right way. But if we think we can just tuck them away in a jail cell, we're just recreating the same thing that we catch-22, just over and over and over again.
You gotta educate it.
Education is the key. Now, let me tell you, what do you think this film's effort, what do you think it's going to do against domestic violence, this film?
This film, I feel my hopes are for this film to spark conversation, to spread knowledge and education, and to open the eyes up to those people who aren't even aware of what's going on, open their eyes up to it, and so that, and to get more men involved so that they're aware of it. Because I don't think that the anti-domestic violence movement, I don't think it's going to make any ground. Well, make much more grounds as long as it's not being talked about in barbershops. If it's not being talked about in the bars.
Right.
Being talked about amongst men.
Right.
Out alone. Men have to talk about it. Because we're most of the problem. Yes, there are men who endure domestic violence and domestic abuse also. But the number is like, once again, it's that kind of
big spread between them.
Yeah.
Right.
So we just gotta talk, and my hopes are for this film to just bring light and to bring
educate.
Bring light,
educate us.
And educate.
And it also, I always say this because this sometimes keeps people in situations, is shame. Mm-hmm. So this is not to shame even the abuser, but to show them you need help.
Yeah.
You need something broken up in you so that you can be a better person. And I always say that because sometimes shame will keep people from at least acknowledging this is me. Because when you attach something negative to it, they automatically reject the negativity, and then now not able to see that that's me, and not able to, and if you don't acknowledge, you're not gonna do anything about it. Mm-hmm. So I always say to the abuser is, don't feel shame, but let it be something that you look at as, you don't have to be this person. You don't have to do this. And maybe this is the conversation men, because anything is frowned upon as a society as a whole, change will happen in it. Just like the one time it used to be cool to smoke. Remember? It was cool to smoke in the 50s. It was in the movies. Everybody smoked. I don't care what the scene was. You could be taking a bath and got a cigarette in your hand. It was cool to smoke. Yeah. And then society said it's not cool to smoke anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And so what did everybody do? Shifted. It shifted the whole mindset of smoking. And so I think any negative behavior or any negative mindset that we want to shift, you have to have the people or the majority of the people to frown upon it. Yeah. And I think that that's where men, they can't entertain any type of abuse from any brother toward his family or to his significant other. It has to be frowned upon, like unaccepted. And not, because sometimes we'll entertain conversation that's not necessarily agree with it, but we won't say that's wrong.
Yeah.
And especially in our younger generations. Do you agree?
I agree with that. We just certain situations may come up or certain things may happen, and we just let it float or we let it ride, and we want to let it figure itself out. But a new philosophy I'm taking on life right now is I don't want to react to life. I want life to react to me. And I feel like in order for us to see change, we have to, of course, there's a cliche, be the change that you want to see.
Be that change.
but you have to. I think it's important for people to realize that they are the. There's a poem called Invictus. I heard Oprah. She talked about it, and she's like, You have to. The poem ends saying that we are the captains of our ship, and we are the masters of our fate. If we want to change or make a difference in the world or in our lives, we have to realize that like we're our own writers of our own story. Just because your story started off rough, there's always a rewrite. There's always a re-edit.
Yes.
We can make that change and we can make that difference. You don't have to settle for the life that you've been given. You don't have to live in your past
Right.
trauma, your past hurt, your
Right.
past abuse. You can heal. You can be healed and delivered. You are healed. You are
Right.
delivered already.
Right.
It's just up to us to realize that and in order to move forward. And it takes work. It takes work to heal and get
It
past
does.
situations. But it is possible. That's the
It
thing.
is.
It is possible.
It's possible on both sides. I've seen it on both sides where the person who was abused, because I'm a witness to that. I was abused in domestic violence, and you can heal. And then the abuser can also be delivered and also take on a different form. And you're absolutely right. Because it starts off at that direction when you're younger, doesn't mean that that's a path. You can stop today. And anybody who's watching this today, if this is your situation, you don't have to continue. You don't have to be afraid to make a change. I remember when the time for me to get out, I was willing to live homeless than to be in this situation any further. That's how determined you got to be willing to let. And my abuser was military. He was high ranked. Um, he was, you know, somebody the community looked up to, and his peers. But I was willing to let everything go and not have any of that, and to be homeless than to live another day in that situation. And that's sometimes what the drasticness of our movement has got to be, is that you're willing to sacrifice it all, or whatever it is that's holding you there, to include when we feel like we're so in love with this person. You got to love you more.
Yeah. Self-love.
Self-love. You can't really love someone until you have that.
Hmm.
Yeah. You got some hopes for Columbus. What do you want to see happening in Columbus differently? And if you have some thought to it, are you optimistic, or are you pessimistic about it? I mean, what are your weigh in on this?
When I love the city of Columbus, I'm born and raised here. Um, I want to see more love in the homes. I want to see more love in the streets. And I just feel like once we get that love consistently in the home and in our streets, the crime rate will go down. And not just love, but an
Right.
understanding of differences. Because as we were talking about earlier, love doesn't just have to be in harmony, but because it's easy to love someone when you're on the same page or you have the same differences. But can you love
Hmm.
somebody who's different?
Right.
And or if you're in a relationship, can you love someone who is you know you,
Your opposite.
yeah, I like my burgers uh well done. Well, I like mine medium rare.
Right.
You got to compromise. You got to
Right.
compromise.
You don't sit there while I'm eating my medium rare to my. "Eh."
Yeah,
Just be cool. Eat your well done burger.
exactly. Exactly. But when it comes to the city of Columbus, I am optimistic about a positive change. I feel like this movie is a step in the right direction for us. And there are already people who have been doing this way before I even came onto the scene, who've been out there in the streets working on this topic. You have Dr. Hood with Project Rebound. Project Rebound works with men who were abusers, and he gives them counseling, and he coaches them to
Wow.
the other side, to a better life. like I said, Hope Harbor's been around. The Domestic Violence Roundtable has been around. Um, plenty of people already out there doing this, and this my film, A Dangerous Silence, is just to help spread the word and to help get more people to know what's going on and to know about these organizations and to know these women's stories because their names should not be forgotten.
Right. And I think that it's important to not let something so tragic um, not teach us something.
Mhm.
You know, tragedy, we should learn from tragedy. I think one of the victims that I remember that stands out in my head that's in your film was a young lady that was pretty much ran down by her boyfriend and shot and killed on Macon Road. Is that the
Yeah,
one?
that's
What's
Destiny,
her name?
Destiny Virgin.
Destiny. She is one that stands out in my head um, because she was trying to get away and to be killed the way she was. It was tragic and so publicly, you know. Um, I I think that's what got my heart so broken about her situation, what happened to her. And I think the part that really broke my heart was at the time the fear
Hmm.
that was probably gripping her at that moment. And every time I think about her, it just really does something to me because anybody who's been in those situations, that could have been us.
Yeah.
She could have been us. And so I have to say, I applaud you. Don't feel like you're pushing anybody out of the way by doing what you're doing because we all have a role to play. And this film is going to make a difference and broaden our understanding and our awareness and not let people put it to the side as that's private personal matters. It's not private and it's not personal matters. It's something we all need to be involved in, from our family to our friends to our foes. We need to be aware about people who are living in domestic violence situations and children who are having to, because it's not just a husband against a wife, it's children that are in domestic violence situations that are being injured and harmed in matters. It could be father to children or mother to children. All of this is domestic violence.
Yeah.
And so I applaud you, Jacoby, for setting aside your own personal agendas to do community. This is what we call giving back to your community for a better world, for a better tomorrow. You're sacrificing in your youthfulness now. You're sacrificing things that you could be out doing on your own thing and living your own life the way you want to live it. But you're sacrificing your youthful time right now so that you can have a better future, a better tomorrow for our community. And if no one else tells you that, I want to say to you, thank you. Thank you for that sacrifice.
No problem. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. We don't look at it that way, but young people, you know, not not every young person, but a lot of young people are not in this vein. They're not about community anymore. We're about themselves, my bag, securing it. That's what it's all about. But we're not understanding that if you don't put some time in now, down the road, there's a price to pay. And you understand that. And for that, I want to say thank you. I hope that this film, if there's anything that I can do to help this film reach the masses, you let me know. As a matter of fact, I'm going to try to link you up with someone that I know that is in the industry, and I will link you up with them and see if there's anything that they can do for you. And I know you're not doing this for fame and fortune, but this is a message, and their firm is all about that as well. And so I will give you some information after the show about it. So hopefully they'll be able to help you get this message out even more.
Thank you.
I don't. You and I haven't met each other prior to this show, but I feel like kindring spirits, like we, know each other.
It's
Do you
something
feel?
because it's just been easy to talk with you. even before we were just talking like, I don't know, like we was at the family reunion or something.
Family reunion. So I'm going to take that as a hold on to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hold on to you,
You got it.
and let's let our connection stay there, because it's not just for naught. I think that our connection is been brought in place. And so I'm going to do everything I can to help you. I hope I've gotten out all of the information that you wanted to get out. Give us again I'm going to put the screening. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put your screening information at the tail end of this show, and people will be able to get it. And also, if you want, I will do the link as well. And then that way they can go to it, because this will be a YouTube as well. They can actually click on it to go to your event and maybe get tickets for it or whatever, or support by way of PayPal.
Yeah.
I will tell you now that I will be giving a donation for your cause, because like I said, this is a topic that's near and dear my heart, and something that I think is worthy of the seed of an offering. So I'll be getting in touch with you about that.
You've gone over and beyond. I'm just happy to be on your show. And thank you. I appreciate you. You are a blessing and a godsend. And this is not the last time you're going to see me,
I
because
know.
this is not the last film. This is not the last movement that I will be a part of. I'm all about change, and I'm trying to make the world a better place for my family, for my future kids who ain't here yet. But I'm trying
That's
to
it.
and to change
That's
it.
it. And
That's
I love your last name, Love.
yes, ma'am.
It
Yeah.
says a lot about you. You know, sometimes we don't even understand the connection of just our name. And Jacoby Love obviously loves the people, and I love it.
Appreciate that. It's
Blessings
a
to
gift.
you.
It's a gift.
And is there anything else you want to tell us about the film? Anything else that we missed that you want to put out there?
The only thing is, I made a mistake. I said that I was not going to call Destiny, Mariah, Deanne, or Jerica victims anymore. I was going to call them heroes, because that's what they are. Any woman who's a survivor or who lost their life is a hero, because we give women who went through breast cancer or any other thing, we we worship them and give them all kind of honors and praise. When it comes to domestic violence, we're a bit quiet on it. So I messed up on that during the interview. So they're not victims. Everyone who's dealt with domestic violence or teen dating violence, because they are two different things,
Right.
is a hero, including you, Ms.
And you
Powell.
know what?
You're a hero too.
I wear mine with honor. And all of us who have been through domestic violence, that have either escaped by leaving and getting away from the person, or unfortunately lost their lives, we have a message.
Mhm.
And I'm just glad you're here to speak for those who aren't able to be here to speak for themselves. So Jacoby Love, thank you. Appreciate you, and we will be in touch.
Most definitely. Thank you. Thank you for having
Yeah,
me.
thank you for coming. Well, we've heard it here. Y'all know how I am about this topic. I can't say too much. I can never talk too much about this topic of domestic violence. If we don't understand that people who are involved in this cycle shape our future, then we have to stop trying to have a better future. We have to know that if we don't do something or take this thing serious, and like Jacoby says, stop the silence of it, then we can just look for our future to be more and more of the same, which is people hurting and dying for no reason. And so education is the key. When you know better, you should do better. And so for this cause, get the word out. Come and see the film. Come and join this fight. Be a part of it. If you can't make the film, be a blessing. Uh, Jacoby has already shown his hand and said that it's about the community in which he lives. And so buy into that. Help him make a difference. So until the next time, remember that we love each other. Remember that God loves us all. And I'll see you at the round table next week.